Chapter 14. Exploring the Secret Room. The following morning, Penny awoke at about 8 o'clock at the stirring of her visitor. Marjorie slept peacefully on, but Penny hopped up to find the Green Lady awake and nervous. Penny spoke in a whisper, not to waken Marjorie, but with a pleasant and what she hoped was a reassuring smile. "I'll let my sister sleep," she said, "but I'm going down to get you some breakfast. You are not to worry one bit. Nobody is going to know a single thing about your being here or take you away. We'll find out everything first, and if there is anybody you want, we'll get them for you." Tears came into the brown eyes of the Green Lady. "I want my own father, but I don't know where to find him." "Then we'll keep you till you do. Phil will have ideas. He's awfully smart, and he feels horrible about scaring you so. Only you see, we didn't know what or whom we were going to find." The Green Lady smiled faintly. "Read the diary," she said. "I'll try not to be so afraid, but I've had such a dreadful time, and I thought no one would believe me. But honestly, I know I don't belong to that man. Please don't let him have any idea I'm here." Again, Penny assured her. It was no time to tell the Green Lady that Mr. Spencer had been suspicious about the lodge. He could have had no suspicion about the secret room, however, she thought. With a sick girl, it was hard to manage everything, but the boys prepared their own breakfast. Finally, everyone had eaten. The Green Lady was sitting up in the bedroom, wrapped in Penny's warm robe, and Marjorie appointed herself assistant nurse to save Penny many steps. The boys went down to investigate the secret room. They found that the bookshelves which swung out were low ones, only 3, but it was behind them that the little catch which opened the panel from this side was located. "It was nothing much to see," commented Jimmy, "only to indicate where to put the pressure. On the other side, the lock was more apparent." A short flight of steps led down into the secret room, a low, rather narrow room whose furniture consisted of a daybed, 2 chairs, a small table, a set of shelves, a little stepladder, and a small dressing table. A low door at one end probably led to an outer entrance. This was bolted on the inside, and when the boys tried to open it, they could not budge it. The girl had obviously not entered from the outside. Her occupancy was indicated by a few dishes and utensils on the table, several blankets on the bed, and a very few clothes that hung in a small closet built across the corner of the room. Near this stood a small safe, at the sight of which Jimmy's eyes opened. "Say, Phil, maybe there's money in that safe." "Maybe there isn't," grinned Phil. "The man who built this house had this for a refuge, I'm sure. I imagine the ladder is to see out of those barred windows above. Say, they look just like those other ventilators around the house and in the cellar. She didn't dare have a bit of light down here, except the blue ghost light occasionally. She must have heard them talk about the ghost, and when she was hunting blankets and things, found the clothes. Very clever." "She's a cute-looking kid," said Jimmy. "I wonder how old she is." "She's about Penny's age, I'd guess, though she's little and nearly starved. She doesn't weigh as much as Marjorie." They poked about the musty room for a little and then left, taking the small diary that the Green Lady had mentioned to Penny. Upstairs again, they found Penny and Marjorie in the living room. "She's asleep now," said Penny, in answer to Philip's question. "Why don't you read us what's in the diary, Phil, while we are all together?" Philip opened the diary and looked it over. "Dates are scattered," he said. "I'll not bother to read them. The first one corresponds with the time we heard of as the time the girl ran away. By the way, we must show her that bag we found. Here goes. Here I am in a safe hiding place at last, and I must write it out a little." If I should die here, and they ever found me, it might help someone to know who I am. Things are beginning to clear up a little, but I am weak and frightened, and I do not know how I can ever get away. I'd rather die than go back to those people. Mr. Spencer could never convince me that he is my father. When he said father, I had a picture of a very different man come to me for a moment. I lost it again, but I think they were giving me some medicine all the time to put me to sleep. I do not even know where I am. They kept all papers and magazines away from me if they had any. It looks very wild here, and it is very cold at times. There is a big lake, and that is all I know. I must go on with this. Back of being here, I remember pain, and I think a hospital, for I remember nurses coming and going, and somebody not like Mr. Spencer that came and stayed by me and held my hand. But I must have been pretty sick, and there was some injury to my head, because even after I came, there was a bandage on it that the nurse with Mr. Spencer took away at last. After the hospital, there was an automobile. That seemed all right, and a nurse was with me, not the same one. Then it was all confusion, and I wonder what happened. Instead of a car, there was an airplane when I woke up to what was going on. I don't know how I got to the house I was in, and I suppose I was put to sleep again. My name, by the way, is Adra, and that is an odd name. I am sure it is a family name, though I can't remember. I was well taken care of after we came here, until one day I heard Mr. Spencer say to the nurse that unless something happened soon, they were in the soup, and after that the nurse was different, rougher, and let me get around more. I got the idea that they were going to do something terrible to me. I found my purse that they had taken away and hid it in my bed. Then I got a few clothes together one time when the nurse left me for a while and I was supposed to be asleep. I didn't take the medicine as usual that night. It tasted differently at night, and I know that it had something in it to put me to sleep. Perhaps I had needed it. I don't know. I know that I have had to learn to sleep without it. That night I let myself down from the porch. Oh, so afraid that someone would be watching. I went into the woods at once, not to be seen, and I was pretty lost for some time. But I kept toward the breeze that seemed to come from water. So at last I found the lake and this place. A cabin door was unlocked and I went in. There was a flashlight on the table, and I could hear someone snoring. Philip stopped at this point to laugh. "That's a good one on Pat," said he. "Oh, please don't stop," cried Marjorie, who was listening wide-eyed to the story. "Okay, Margie," said Philip, and he went on reading. I took the flashlight and an apple that was on the table with some other things and tiptoed around till I found a room that was not slept in, though the door was closed, and I was afraid to open it at first. I heard the man stirring around in the morning, but he didn't try my door at all. What he was cooking smelled good, but I was almost frightened out of what wits I had left when I heard Mr. Spencer at the door. Whoever that man is, blessings on him. He wouldn't let Mr. Spencer come into the house or search the lodge, as he called it. Then he went away and I came out, only to run out of sight when some women came. The big house was opened up and they were cleaning. I found out from their conversation. I waited until later in the day. I was scared terribly to try it, but I slipped into the kitchen, got into the front of the house, went up to an unused room off the balcony, and crawled under the bed there. Philip stopped to grin again. "I tell you, that man was uncanny. He knew that she had been under one of those beds." "Phil!" laughed Penny. "Go on," urged Jimmy. I found this secret room in a queer way. I thought perhaps I could find out where I was from some letter in the desk, but it was locked, except a drawer where I found this paper. The women had cleaned too well, and I didn't find even a newspaper around. I saw something on top of one of the bookshelves and climbed on top of the lower ones to reach it. I slipped as I climbed up, knocked something, I suppose, against the spring in the panel, and out came the panel and shelves. I braced a chair so I'd not be caught in a place I couldn't open, and investigated this room. It was musty and horrible, but I rolled up the rug and stood it in a corner, got some things from the kitchen, and cleaned it as well as I could. I put an old comforter that I found in the storeroom over the daybed, and then took a number of blankets. Even with them, I cannot keep warm. A great calamity today. I lost the bag with my money. I decided to go out at night, thinking that they would not be hunting for me at night. I meant to find a boat, for I was sure if I followed the shore far enough, I could find one, then keep close to land till I got to some town and go on some steamer or freight boat or anything to some other town. Anyhow, I would find out where I was and perhaps elude Mr. Spencer. But maybe they thought I would go at night. Anyhow, someone was hunting around. I heard Fritz barking not far away. I was confused and ran first in the wrong direction, and then I dropped my purse, money and all. I hope they didn't find it, but of course they did. What shall I do? I forgot to tell how I had heard the servants telling the nurse about the ghost at the lodge. They described her completely, and when I was hunting clothes in the storeroom and opened that trunk, didn't I come across the identical green dress and mask and flashlight with the starlight illusion? But as I must get out at night to get something to eat, this may help. I'm hungry all the time. My hope is failing too, and yet I'm free. A family moved in today. I'll not be able to get out of this room except at night. It is very late in the year for anyone to come to a summer lodge. Fritz was barking and sniffing all around here today. Sometimes I think I must come out and tell these people about myself, but I'm sure they will never believe me. I suppose I'll have to someday, but perhaps something will happen. I'm very worried because I was seen by one of the boys. He was big and tall and scared me almost to death. I slid behind the panel in a hurry, and I think he thought I jumped out of the window, for I heard him tramping all around the house, outside as well as inside. I must try to get away pretty soon, for it will grow colder. I know where I am now, for someone left a copy of the encyclopedia with a road map right in it, and it is Michigan. The routes in the Upper Peninsula are all marked. Some night I will start out. Perhaps I can work my way, but I don't feel very strong. It looks hopeless. The only thing I have to keep me up is that I am free. I can sleep better, too, safe in here. I shall just stay put for the present. Perhaps it will seem safe to ask for help, but I can't bring myself to it now. That's all, concluded Philip, and pretty clear for a supposedly unbalanced person to write. I'm inclined to believe her. Oh, so am I, Penny spoke up. Do let's keep her here and take care of her until she's well enough to tell us the rest of her story. What do you say, Jimmy? Marjorie? Keep her here, of course, said Jimmy promptly. Marjorie felt the same way. Well then, went on Penny, it seems to me that our plans for the winter are settled. We'll stay here. Pat can surely help you get a job somewhere, Phil, and Marjorie and Jimmy won't have to interrupt their education. Penny, you're absolutely right, chimed in Phil enthusiastically. I hadn't thought of it in that way at all. Golly, and I can get to know the Clinton girls and we can all go to school together, Marjorie said. Think of all the skiing and skating we can do this winter, was Jimmy's comment. How about going upstairs and breaking the good news to our patient? Asked Penny. She's surely awake by now. Imagine, here we've stewed for weeks about what our plans should be, and it took a ghost to make them for us. The others approved of Penny's suggestion, and the four made their way upstairs to Adra's room. Penny knocked softly on the bedroom door. "It's me, Penny. Are you awake, Adra? May we come in?" At Adra's nearly inaudible consent, Penny pushed open the door quietly. Marjorie and the two boys followed her into the room where they found their patient sitting up in bed, watching them apprehensively. "We've come to tell you our plans," said Penny, reaching for the girl's hand. "Let us say right off that there is nothing to worry about. We won't let anything happen to you." Penny smiled warmly to reassure her. Adra smiled back weakly, her eyes taking in the others in the room. "You're so kind," she began. "I'm sorry to be causing you all this trouble. If I only knew who I am and who my father is." "That's exactly what we're going to find out," Philip said firmly. "We've been reading your diary, and we all believe your story. There seems to be no doubt that Mr. Spencer is not your father." "We won't confuse you with questions now," Penny told her. "The first thing for you to do is regain your strength. But when you are stronger, we'll get reliable people to help us." Adra started slightly at Penny's last statement. "No," she said loudly. "You mustn't do that. I'm so afraid Mr. Spencer will take me away if you do that." "How can we convince you that such a thing won't happen?" put in Jimmy. "That's the last thing we could allow." "Please believe us," pleaded Marjorie, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "Don't you see?" Penny began again. "All we want to do is help you. Why, we're so grateful that we found you. It even helped us to settle our own plans for the winter." And then she told Adra what they had discussed among themselves previously, how they planned to remain for the winter, how Marjorie and Jimmy would go to school, and how sure they were that Phil would find a profitable job. Philip interrupted Penny to add that Pat Ryan had proved to be a good and loyal friend to all of them in the short time they had known him. "We'll have to tell him our story," he told her. "He can be depended upon to keep it to himself and tell us what to do. If necessary, we'll have our uncle's lawyer help us too. Please remember that our first consideration is to protect you, not to harm you." Phil stopped then, unable to think of any other way to gain the girl's confidence. Such a frightened little thing, he thought to himself. Adra spoke again. "I see. You really do believe in me. Perhaps I should tell you then what I was thinking about before you all came in." The four Allens looked at her expectantly, and Penny said, "Any facts you can give us will help us all the more." "When I woke up, I thought for a moment that I was in my own bed at home. The feeling only lasted an instant, but in that split second I could see the house. As I tried harder to remember, the feeling passed. It was a large house, I'm sure of that, and it was in a big city, I think. And another thing, I felt all along that my home was in the East. Why, I can't tell you, but the feeling is there." "All these things may help a great deal," Philip reassured her. "We'll start our search on the assumption that your feeling is correct. At least, it will narrow the field a little. We'll talk to Pat about it, and I think he'll agree that the best thing would be to explain the situation to our lawyer, Mr. Shaw. There may have been stories in the newspaper concerning this whole matter. If so, our task will be an easy one." "I think you had better rest now," Penny said when Philip had finished. "You've done enough talking for the present. I'll go down and fix you some nice hot soup." While Penny was fixing the soup, Marjorie went out to the garden to pick a few late-blooming roses, which she thought might brighten up Adra's tray. Only a few hardier flowers still bloomed here and there, the button chrysanthemums and others that could endure the light frosts which had come during the last few nights. It seemed certain that winter was coming soon. As Marjorie reached the back steps, she heard the chugging of a car coming up the drive. Without looking to make sure, she called to the others, "Pat's here!" End of chapter 14.